Hi, welcome to Notes on Arrival. I'm Gwen.
And I'm Margo.
And we are usually an audio podcast, and this is our first video series. We're doing a two-part Ask Me Anything. This is part two. It's all about questions that our listeners have sent us about postpartum and motherhood. If you haven't checked out part one, definitely do that. Part one is all about conceiving, pregnancy, and birth. If you don't know what Notes on Arrival is, we're a podcast about birth. We interview women about their birth stories. We also have birth experts on, such as doulas and chiropractors and
pelvic floor physical therapists.
Yeah, anyone who works in the birth space.
All right, let's dive in.
Cool.
What can I expect my body to go through and feel like postpartum? What are some of the products I should have? Tucks, waist trainer, undies, milk pads.
I feel like postpartum, you kind of feel like you just got hit by a truck a little bit. Like, I think no matter how you give birth, it's just like a huge experience. And like, not to mention, it's a very rapid change in your body in such a short period.
Yeah.
Like you instantly are at least 20 pounds lighter within minutes because you're birthing out water and the baby and the placenta
and blood.
Yeah, like it's just like this massive thing that happens. So besides all of the like hormonal roller coasters and everything else, it's just like physically like your whole body's like, whoa, like where do I go?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a wild experience. And yeah, I think just like the hormonal roller coaster the first few weeks, it's like super emotional. You know, physically you're like, why do I smell so terrible?
Oh my God, you smell so terrible.
No one told me that.
I didn't know that either. And I didn't learn until the second time that is so that the baby can find you.
Yeah. That's why your nipples get really dark too.
Yes.
So the baby can't really see very well, but they can see contrast a little bit. So your nipples get really dark. So the baby can like literally just crawl on you and be like, oh, there it is.
Yep.
And you smell like your worst version of body odor all the time.
Yeah.
So the baby's like, oh, that's mom.
Yep.
So it's kind of gross and weird, but it's also kind of incredible what nature does for us.
Let's put a positive spin on it. I do want to say that, like, I think recovery probably differs based on the type of birth you have.
For sure.
Right? Recovery from a scheduled C-section is going to be different from if you were in labor for 30 hours and then got a C-section. Like, I think that that's probably the hardest.
For sure.
Versus a vaginal birth. Like, it's all going to be different. One thing that my mom said she didn't realize is, like, whether or not you had a cesarean, you bleed. So, like, you bleed for like 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks. My first time it was about 2 weeks. My second time it was about 1 week.
I think physically, I always feel very kind of fragile afterwards.
Yeah, everything kind of hurts. That's why I said you kind of feel like you got hit by a truck because you're kind of like, everything is like sore. Also, like your boobs are super swollen and like your whole belly and abdomen is like just like this weird, like sloppy, like roll.
I felt like a deflated balloon.
Yeah.
Like,
and like your vagina and your butt are like destroyed for a short period. Don't worry. It gets back to normal.
It does. And if it doesn't, there are things to help.
There are options.
There are options. What are some of your favorite like products to have on hand?
I mean, those like massive pads that are like the size of your whole torso to put in your panties, those are great. Witch hazel pads, those are helpful for once you're ready for like to actually wipe your skin with something. If you have like hemorrhoids or anything, I struggle with that the first time. Or just like any soreness and tearing in your vagina, which is like to be expected. I think a week or two in, like once you're kind of starting to heal a little bit and you can actually withstand a little bit of like wiping, those are really nice and like cooling.
Oh, that's funny. I always, both times, I just put them in my underwear and left them there.
Oh, that's true. You can like put them on the pad
too.
I
would just put them. Yeah. And I also used adult diapers the second time.
Oh,
and to be honest, it was like really very easy. Just like take the whole thing off and put the whole thing on.
That's smart. I actually did like, I like the Freedom Mom mesh like boy short underwear.
Yeah.
And then you put like the huge pad in there and you could put the tucks or whatever else in it.
Yeah.
For comfort. But I mean, the first few days it's just like painful and uncomfortable and messy.
Yeah.
I also really like the reusable, washable milk pads.
Same.
Yeah, because you'll spill a lot if you're nursing. Like you're gonna just have milk for like so much milk for the first few days.
And I had no idea about that the first time around. And it's something that this, like, my like list of products that I like send to my friends who are pregnant. I'm like, no one told me that I needed to buy these. I had no idea what my boobs were going to go through. So yeah, I agree. The little like bamboo reusable milk pads. And then you use them for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I use them through both of my breastfeeding journeys.
Yeah.
The other thing to mention is that you have to have like a bra or like a tank top or something that you're putting those pads in to sleep in.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who's ever slept in a bra before, but when you're early days postpartum, you almost don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to get milk everywhere. And I would even sometimes, I had like a really kind of tight like crop top that wasn't really a bra, but it was almost like a Brammy. Remember when that was a thing a few years ago? And you could like stick your pads in there, and then I would still sometimes sleep on a towel in case
Yeah, sometimes even with the like bra and those milk pads, especially early days, I would wake up in the morning and be like, why am I all wet?
Yeah. Did you ever use like a waist trainer or like shaper or anything?
I didn't, and I had one and I thought about it. If we end up having a third, I probably would, because I think it's supposed to help with like the separation.
Yeah. I used one a little bit, but I didn't really like it. I don't know. I just feel like the first few months, even like there's so much sitting. If you're nursing, like you're just sitting with the baby a lot. Even if you're not nursing, you're just sitting, giving the baby a bottle. And I feel like it's kind of hard to wear something like that comfortably when you're sitting. And for me, comfort was just the most important thing. I didn't use anything like that.
Yeah, I agree about the comfort. And I would say like not a specific like product, but like get clothes that you will be comfortable in and clothes that are like easily accessible. So like with my son, I lived in maternity leggings and cardigans because he was born in November.
I love that.
And then with my daughter, I like bought beforehand like a lot of like button down summer loose dresses, because you go from like, at least me, wanting to really like show off that baby bump to not
showing off your deflated balloon.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
So on to the next question.
Let's do it.
How did you navigate learning about newborn care and make sense of all of the information that's out there?
I don't even know how much effort I put into newborn care. I mean, we have a podcast about birth, not about motherhood. I definitely talked to friends, I think, who had recently had kids. And my mom, like, I think our mothers and other maternal figures are helpful for that.
Yeah.
But they haven't done it as recently. If you have friends that have had kids in the last year, they're good to talk to, just to like be like, you know, what did you find really helpful? I also talked to my doula a little bit about this the first time around, because I wanted to make sure that I was being realistic about like where my baby was going to sleep and how much I was going to sleep and how was I going to resolve any breastfeeding issues if anything came up. Lactation consultants are really helpful. I don't know if I read any books specifically about this. I feel like all my books were really focused on like the pregnancy and birth process. What did you do?
Yeah, so I admittedly did not do enough to prep for this the first time around. And it was something that made me very uncomfortable, because it's like I had been very intentional about my birth and all the choices I was making, and I'd done a ton of research. And then you get thrown into newborn care, and I had a ton of issues with breastfeeding with my son.
Yeah.
And it was extremely painful. I got mastitis twice in the first 2 weeks of his life. I didn't even know what mastitis was until after I had given birth. So I love your advice about like talking to friends. I also, what I do and what I would recommend is like finding your local mom group. There's a group for me that's run by a postpartum doula, and like meeting other women through that who like live in your area, I think is really helpful. So you can find other people who are like going through it at the same time as you. Yeah. So through that, I ended up getting in touch with a lactation consultant. Something she said really has stuck with me. She was like, you could get 10 doctors in a room, 10 nurses, and 10 lactation consultants, and ask them all the same question about breastfeeding, and you will get 30 different answers. Yeah. And it's so easy to say, but really challenging to do, that I feel like with being a mom with anything, you kind of have to trust your gut. Yeah. Right? Like get all of the information, ask as many questions as you can. And the other thing I would say is pediatricians are great. They're not specialists in infant and newborn care. They also don't know a fucking thing about breastfeeding. True. They don't. They're not trained in it. It's not what they get information on. If you think of pediatricians, like they have to cover birth to 18. That's a long range. Yeah. I would say like ask them questions, but if you don't feel like you're getting what you need from them, like you don't need to be pressured or rushed into anything. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask the same sort of questions you would have asked in your birth. Like, is this medically necessary? Can I take a few minutes to think about this? So I think it's really challenging, and I wish that there were better and more resources out there, because I feel like it's hard to find things because no one wants to do research on newborns. Yeah, no, that's true. I did read one book shortly after my son was born, Bringing Up Bebe, which I really liked. I know I've talked about that one before. It's about an American woman who's raising her kids in Paris, and it's like sort of bringing the
Parisian and French parenting approach to more of like an American mom. And I liked that. I feel like that book actually kind of encouraged me to sleep train my son, which I know is kind of controversial. And honestly, I'm not even sure how I feel about it. And I did it with my son and not as much with my daughter. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think you just, like Margo said, I just trusted my instincts and I've done what's felt right for each of my kids. But there's other things about that book that I liked. She talks about something called le pause, which is just like, always kind of, even from like the first day, like making the baby wait for a second. And I think that's kind of smart. It's like, okay, maybe the baby just like needs a minute to get comfortable. Yeah. Maybe the baby needs this, and then it translates into toddlerhood. Like maybe you just need to teach your kid like, hey, the whole world doesn't revolve around you. Like you just kind of need to wait a second sometimes for a response.
One thing I really appreciated about the pause is something that I didn't realize or know is like newborns, when they sleep, they're loud. They thrash around. They might open their eyes. They're like noisy in their sleep. I didn't realize. I like couldn't sleep with Mello in the room with us.
Well, think about like overnight when the baby's in you. They're just kind of going, doing their thing.
Having a party. I think that that's what the pause is good for. Is like not necessarily making them wait, but like, do they really need you?
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked a lot about breastfeeding already. And we have a couple questions about it. So Let me get into one of them. How did you prepare for breastfeeding and pumping when you were returning to work? Do you feel like your work was like supportive of the demands that breastfeeding and pumping had?
Yeah. So first off, I want to say that like breastfeeding is a lot, right? Yeah. Breastfeeding by itself is a full-time job.
It's almost like more than being pregnant.
It's more than being pregnant.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And pumping is so much. I hate pumping.
I hate pumping.
I hate pumping. So I alluded to like my son, we had a lot of issues with breastfeeding. I worked with a lactation consultant. I think if you are pregnant and you plan on breastfeeding, get a lactation consultant now.
Yeah. I always tell my friends who are pregnant, like just do it before your baby even comes. Just like
100%.
Find someone who you want to hire, tell her when you expect to deliver more or less, and just be like, I'm going to have you come for a home visit ideally.
Yes, you definitely want someone for a home visit. And also my county offered like it for free through the Department of Health, which is awesome. Limiting in the like kind of person I'm going to get, but really, really helpful to have someone who will like come to your house and do it for free.
Yeah.
Lactation consultant's really helpful. With my son, we were doing what's called triple feeds, which is where you nurse and then you pump to get the excess out, and then you give the baby what you pumped. And it is exhausting.
Oh my God.
I realized that I was spending more than 8 hours a day, like just feeding him. And then my husband was washing all of the pump parts and everything for me in between everything. It's insane. So I knew that before I went back to work, like that wasn't sustainable for me to do that. So I weaned off the triple feeds before going to work. And then I figured out like a schedule of what would work. This time around, I'm still nursing my daughter. I like never pump. I pump maybe once a day because I have so much PTSD from doing it the first time. And you know what? Like it works for us. I work from home. She's home with me and with my husband. So it's feasible, which I'm very, very grateful for. And I have like some milk, like just in case, I want to go and get a massage and she's hungry.
Yeah. I feel like working from home definitely makes it so much easier because I also had that experience having my daughter at home while I was working from home and not needing to pump for the most part with her. The other thing is like when I have been in situations where I had to be in office or traveling or whatever, like just not having any shame around like asking for the resources you need. Like, hey, we're going to need to schedule a 20-minute break in this meeting so that I can pump. These are the times that I'm not going to be available, and just like being really firm about that, demanding that there's a place that you can pump like safely and privately. I feel like the first time around I was a little bit more like timid around that stuff, and the second time I was just like, this is what I need. You legally are required to to like accommodate me, but also just like culturally, like you should be respectful and just like more than willing to make those accommodations.
Yeah. In the United States, they have to make reasonable accommodation for breastfeeding. I would also say Sary's Chill has like bottles that you can do that are really great for milk storage, especially if you're traveling. If you like work in an office, it's fantastic. And there's a ton of products and things out there that I think can enable you and make things easier.
Yeah. Actually, my husband's coworker was telling me she traveled for work and she told the company, she's like, I'm happy to travel for work, but you're going to have to pay for the shipment of my breast milk from like where we're going back to my house. And it's and the company did it. So like, I think depending on obviously like your leveling of where you are, if you're like a very junior person, they might not make those type of accommodations. But if you're like senior enough and have been there long enough and you believe that your company would be willing to take on an expense like that, it's probably a few $100s. Like at the end of the day, it's not like that big of a price tag for most corporations. So I think just like knowing what's out there, and if you are a working mom and you're going back to work and need those types of accommodations, like demand those.
Yeah. I really want to say that like I think breastfeeding and working is one of the most exhausting things.
It is, yes.
And if you are doing that or are planning on doing that, you're a fucking rock star.
Yep, I agree. Okay, next one on breastfeeding. How did you handle weaning your baby? Or I was going to say, or did you?
Well, my daughter is almost 8 months, so she is not weaned yet. I plan to nurse her until she's a year. With my son, so I got mastitis twice in the first 2 weeks of his life, and I got clogged ducts with him all the time. I am this time around taking sunflower lecithin and I've maybe gotten a couple of clogged ducts, but they have not been that bad. So highly recommend taking that. So I was very nervous about weaning because I was nervous about getting mastitis again. Yeah. And you can get depressed when you wean because breastfeeding promotes oxytocin being released, and there's like you can get depressed because you're not having that anymore. So with my son, I was still nursing him when he turned a year, like 7 times a day, like a lot. So I dropped a feed a week for the first like 4 weeks. And then I was done. I was just done. I was pregnant with my daughter. I was so touched out. I was so over it. And I dropped the last 3 feeds in a week. Like I went like 2 days drop, 2 days drop, 2 days drop.
Yeah.
And you want to know what? It was totally fine. I was so nervous. He now takes a bottle, and we definitely need to get him off the bottle, but he takes a bottle of cow's milk. And I think he was getting a lot. I think he's getting more from the bottle than he was getting from the breast at the end.
Yeah.
So I think it was like I built it up to be this whole big thing in my mind, and I was careful about it, but it was totally fine. And I was worried about like, are we still going to be connected and bonded? And we are, it also, I felt so relieved. I was like, he doesn't need me in that way anymore. How about you?
For both of my kids, it was kind of like a combo feed. Like we started doing combo feeds at different phases for each of them. But I'll give the example with my daughter. So I started combo feeding her around 10 months. I got mastitis twice, actually, back to back. Got a bunch of antibiotics. And my milk supply just like totally never came back. It was really unfortunate. But she was eating a lot of food at that point. I started giving her some cow's milk. I know some pediatricians will recommend you wait until a year until you give them milk. I didn't. I talked to some friends who have more of like the midwifery background who said, like if your baby's eating cheese, like you can give them some milk.
They're not gonna turn into a pumpkin at midnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I never understood the like you can do all of these things suddenly at a year. They can have honey at a year. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think it's just like those safe benchmarks. But So I started supplementing with some like toddler formula with some milk, and I just started breastfeeding less. So it was kind of just like a slow wean over a couple months, and I stopped nursing her once she turned 1. Okay, should we move on to some questions about motherhood?
Yeah, let's do it.
How long did you take for maternity leave, and did you feel that it was long enough?
Yeah, so I got 16 weeks for leave.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, 16 weeks paid in full for leave for both of my kids. And what's funny is like that's part of why I've stayed at my company for so long, because I was like, wow, that's really generous. Especially with my son, I was like, this is not enough. It's not enough time. I really felt like my whole life I've been like, I'm going to be a working mom and I'm going to want to go back to work and I'm going to be so excited about it. And like people talk about like being bored on maternity leave. And I think that's all a bunch of bullshit. At 16 weeks, I'll never forget. I was in my like first meeting. It was my first like full week back. And he rolled over for the first time and I missed it. And I like sobbed. I was hysterical. So like, yeah, I stayed with my company for so long because 16 weeks is really generous comparatively in the United States, but it was not enough time. And I felt so just lied to. I felt so lied to. And I was like, all of these people who were like eager to go back to work. I mean, look, if that's you, like, fantastic, right? Yeah. Like there's no shame in that. I'm not saying that that's bad or worse, but I had never heard of someone who like me, who's ambitious. I like to work. I like my job quite a lot, but really really missed my son. And with my daughter, with my second, we didn't have the complications, right? Mm-hmm. Like breastfeeding was much easier. I was more confident in myself as a mom. I knew what to expect. And I knew what to expect going back to work. You know, I was like a little bit more ready. I think it should be at least 6 months.
Yeah. I had 12 weeks. Oof. It was not enough.
Yeah.
I don't really know what else to say. Yeah. I don't know. I just, especially after my first, like I was not ready to go back.
I spent a lot of time too, like thinking about, oh my God, sometimes for some women it's 6 weeks. And like
some women don't get any leave like at all, technically. And it's just, it breaks my heart, to be honest. And I think we all deserve more.
100%.
I feel like that goes into that question really nicely.
This one?
Yeah.
If you could be a stay-at-home mom, would you?
I think I would.
Really?
I don't know if I always would have felt that way.
I'm actually surprised that that's your answer.
I don't know. I feel like the more that I learn about like early childhood and just like education models that are available to us, I am just like not so sure that the way that our society is set up to have 2 parents working and outsource your childcare and education, I just don't know if like that's the best option. And I feel like I would be a stay-at-home mom, even though I think it's such a harder job than the one that I have now.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you going to try to be a stay-at-home mom?
I would like to, but I don't think it's something that's like financially feasible for us right now. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not something I could do when my kids are even like a little bit older. Yeah. If that's something we decide to make changes to our lifestyle, or if, I don't know, like I think I don't have a plan to, but I would do it.
That's awesome. That was a question that I like really grappled with when I went back to work the first time. I was really angry and resentful of a lot of people at that point. My husband is a domestic goddess. Like he cooks dinner for us every single night. He does a lot of the cleaning. He is a stay-at-home dad. He takes care of our kids full time. And I was resentful. I really was very angry about that. But I've kind of like sat with that a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm now at the point where like I work from home. I have been with my company for a long time. I have a lot of like comfort and flexibility there. I also like, I work very hard. If I have to work after I put the kids to bed, I do that.
Yeah, I do that often.
Yeah, that's the reality of being a working mom. I don't think that I would, at least not now, at least not at this point. I think if I could have done it for a year with my son, yes, actually, like definitely. And like maybe if I could have done it for the first 3 years of my kids' lives, perhaps. But I feel incredibly grateful for the situation that we're in and how we've made it work. Because like, you know, living on one income is not easy.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think that we're going to go on vacation for years, you know, like somewhere.
I mean, that's some of the sacrifices that you make.
Yeah.
Unless like one person is an extremely high earner.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone that I know who's on a single income, they make those sacrifices.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm like, would I be willing to make some of the sacrifices, like downsize my house or live in a different area that's cheaper, or again, like not travel, things like that. Like, I suppose we could make those adjustments and figure it out. But I'm just like, maybe if my family was super rich and I didn't need to work, that's the perfect situation.
Yeah. But I do want to iterate something that you said, which is that like, I think being a stay-at-home mom or being a stay-at-home dad is the hardest job on the planet.
Yeah.
You do not get a break.
100%.
You don't get a break. And your bosses are little tyrants. Adorable, lovable tyrants.
Seriously. Okay. How do you manage juggling being a mom, a wife, having a career, and maintaining friendships?
Oh, God.
Do you juggle?
I mean, I think that we can say that like having it all is bullshit.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Our kids are also young now. Like your son is only just about to turn 3.
Yeah.
I think that this is the like season of life that we're in.
Yeah.
Where thankfully I feel like the friends that I have are in a similar season.
Yeah.
And like maybe we're not seeing each other as much as we used to, or maybe like us, right? Like we're hanging out. The dinner that we had tonight was
it was hectic, to say the least.
It was hectic. Like,
but that's like to be expected.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have to be very precious with your time.
Yeah. And
how you're spending your time. I always said that my husband and I have, since having children, have gotten very efficient at fighting. You know?
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, you just ruthlessly prioritize. Like,
yeah.
I used to be someone who like, I like my job. I'm saying this again. I like my job very much. I like the people that I work with. I like the problems that I get to solve. but work is not the most important thing in my life by far. My kids are the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think that's probably how that shifts for everyone when they have kids.
Yeah. And I think you don't realize it until you have them.
Like I never really thought about how that would change for me.
Yeah.
As someone who was like, oh, I want to have a good career and like earn a lot of money and stuff. Then I just realized that I was, working to maintain the lifestyle that I want to be able to like raise my family in a way that feels fun and happy. I think some of the ways too that for me, I'm able to juggle some of those other relationships, like, being a wife and being a friend and showing up to people's events and things like that, is really just like leaning on your family and friends and anyone else who can like help out. Like hire a babysitter to give you and your partner some time, or go stay with your parents and like go out with your friends from where you're from. Like we do that all the time. And not all the time, but we'll go up to New York where we're from and go out with friends there. So yeah, I think it's like, obviously your relationships are going to change and evolve when you have kids, but they don't have to completely go away.
No.
I think too, just like, responding to people, being the one to reach out. Just always like, it's almost like I sometimes treat my other relationships as like kind of side jobs that I have, because I'm like, I have to like keep this going, It's important to me. I'm a social person. I don't want being a mom to be the only part of my life, even though it is the most important part of my life, just especially so early on in their lives.
What about being a wife?
I mean, yeah, I think the same thing. Like, when we go and stay with our parents or they come and stay with us, we go out for date night. And I remember actually over the summer, my mom came and she was like, why don't you guys like go out for a date? And Janara and I were like, yeah, like that sounds awesome. And then by the time the kids were down and we were like going to go out, we were like, I'm like so tired. I don't want to do it. But we were like, instead of going out for a date, we decided to walk over to an ice cream shop, get an ice cream cone, and just walk back. And it was just like having that like, 30, 40 minutes just together, just doing something where we could like talk about something besides our kids and not just be like parenting them while we're also trying to spend time together. I think it's those small moments. So even if you're not like up for like the date night or whatever, find something to do where you're like just spending a little time together, even if it's in the house, like doing a puzzle or just something different than what you would typically do.
Yeah. Marcello got me a like Pac-Man game that like we will play occasionally. I think like after having Lucia, our second, it's been a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But I think I was more shocked by it the first time around. For us, I don't know what it's been like in your household, but it was like, okay, baby, work, my own sanity, my marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was kind of the like prioritization that happened. And it was hard feeling like our marriage was at the bottom, because really our marriage is the foundation of like why we're doing this and like how this all started. And I think that finding time for the small moments and also realizing that like I feel like a lot of the little moments that we have these days are just kind of like sitting back and looking at our kids together. And sometimes you need to schedule time for things. Yeah. That was really helpful for us.
Yeah. Most of the time that we like know we're going to be away from them, we know like weeks in advance. It's not like spontaneous. You actually just said something about like how that changed a lot when you had your first. And I feel like that transitions nicely to this question.
Yeah.
Was it harder to go from 0 to 1 kids or 1 to 2 kids?
So I think for me, 0 to 1 was harder.
Yeah, same.
I think for my husband, 1 to 2 was harder.
Why? Because he's watching them all day?
Yeah. Yes. 0 to 1 was harder because I didn't know what I was doing. We had all these issues with breastfeeding. I felt just like all of the things that I dealt with going back to work. Like there were just so many big transitions that happened so quickly.
Yeah.
That I was really overwhelmed. I feel like emotionally was very volatile.
Yeah.
Emotionally has been volatile the second time too, but in a different way.
Yeah.
I think that people minimize the 1 to 2 transition though.
Yeah.
I think that it's like, oh, it's like having 1.5 kids. And like, no. I also think that for us having like us, you and I having our kids so close in age makes it really difficult. I think 2 under 2 is a whole level of brutality that I was not prepared for,
I was expecting it to be really bad just based on how many people post with the 2 under 2 hashtag.
I was also expecting it to be bad, but I feel a little bit bad because it's like my son, like I was pregnant when he turned 1. Like I feel like I
was too. I just didn't know.
I feel like I like missed some things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or I didn't have the like full attention for him. So 2 under 2, I think is challenging. I think what is challenging about that is that like my daughter was born when my son was 19 months old. So, and my husband like took over watching him full time.
Yeah.
And that was very hard for all of us. Except my daughter, because she didn't know that. She was like, I'm here, I'm cool, I'm new. She's still like that. I missed my son a lot in the early days. And then he got really attached to my husband. Like really, they are the same person. Only recently, like I started to really be very intentional about implementing, like I do bath time with my son now.
Yeah.
My husband still does bedtime because I'm putting our daughter to sleep and that's just how it works. But that like every time we do bath time is just like really special and it's like our time now. So I think it is hard, but the second time around, it's like, you know what you're doing, you know your resources, you know your products. Like I think for me, the second time around was easier.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I feel like the difference between 0 to 1 is so dramatic because like you're going, assuming that you're having a child with a partner, like you're going from your partnership being like just the two of you to now having a third person there that like both people in the partnership are kind of prioritizing over themselves and the other partner. So that's like just mentally a huge shift. And it takes a huge toll on your relationship and it just really evolves your relationship. I don't want to say like a toll, like it's going to get worse and it's going to stay worse. It's just really going to change everything.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is much harder about 0 to 1. I think like lifestyle wise, that is a harder adjustment.
Yeah.
The thing that's harder about 1 to 2 is that no one gets a break.
Yeah.
Like once there's 2, no one gets a break.
No.
Like when my daughter was born, it was my husband was with our son. I was with our daughter. Like we got home from the birth center. I was taking care of her. My mom was taking care of me.
Yep.
My husband was taking care of our son. Like no one got a break.
Yep.
And that is just how it goes for a while, especially if like you were saying your kids are close in age. And the older kid needs a lot of care because they're still a baby or a toddler. So yeah, I think that's what's harder about that one. It's like maybe like more exhausting going from 1 to 2. But I think that like lifestyle and emotionally, it's harder going from 0 to 1.
Yeah. Like I think about, I barely changed any diapers for the first like
same.
Yeah. I
think it was weeks until I changed a diaper.
Yeah. Like I changed a couple occasionally, but I was horrible at it, and then my husband got COVID a month in and like my son leaked through every single diaper because I didn't know how to do it.
Like, all right, we're getting this out.
But my husband never changed the diaper.
Yeah. It was like day 1, you're like, all right, here we go. It's just us.
Yeah. Because he was changing all the toddler diapers, which are worse.
Yes, much worse. I like those newborn diapers.
Yeah.
So cute.
All right, should we do our last question?
Yes, last one.
Do you do screen time? And if so, how did that look for your first versus your second?
We do screen time on TV. We don't do like iPads or phones. I mean, sometimes we'll show him like a video or photo of us as a family on our phones, but we don't let him like watch shows or videos on phones. And we don't do iPads. We have an iPad that we've brought on a plane a couple times. For us, screen time is like usually maybe like 10 to 30 minutes at the end of the day before bed, which I know some people will say, don't do a screen before bed. It's like too stimulating, but we don't show him anything crazy. We don't show him like Cocomelon. It's like Sesame Street or Bluey or maybe like a Pixar movie, like a half an hour of a Pixar movie or something. And honestly, my son is pretty good about it. Like I think because we're not like ultra restrictive of it, it's not this like commodity that he feels like super fixated on. We'll say it's time to turn it off, and it's very rare that he fights us. He's usually like, okay. I would say first versus second. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit like my daughter sees things on the TV if he's watching it and she's in the room. That's usually not the case, but I'm not like really intentional about making sure that she's not there. Yeah. So she's probably a little more exposed to like kids programming earlier on, but I will say she's not really showing much interest in it. And she'll be 18 months in a few months when they like are supposedly like, it's okay to show it to them. So I don't know. I think for us, like we're just like a no small device family, like no phones and iPads. There's nothing wrong with movies and TV. Like we love movies and TV too. Why shouldn't we also enjoy that with our kids and teach them how to do that in moderation?
I love that like mentality. I think with my first, I was very afraid You know, I was like, I didn't even want him to like look at a cell phone. You know what I mean? Like I was
I
very,
think
very...
the handheld devices are scarier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's so accessible.
Yeah.
And like if we were somewhere where there was like, if we went to a restaurant and there was a TV, I was like petrified. But my son took a very long time to talk. And I had a friend who was like, oh, like I like started my daughter on Miss Rachel. And like, then she started to say more like a week later after me starting it. And like, it was really scary, him not talking. Like it was a very stressful thing and we were doing everything right. You know what I mean? Like we were reading books to him. He didn't have any screen time, like all of it. He was home with us, you know, that we were doing everything right and he was just not talking. So we started him on Miss Rachel maybe when he was like 17 or 18 months and like not a lot, you know, like 20 minutes a day.
I mean, how long are those videos? 8 minutes to 30 minutes?
Minutes are an hour long. That's the thing that's kind of crazy.
Okay.
The minutes, like...
I feel like some of them are short.
Some of them might be short.
Okay.
But some of them are like...
My son never really liked Miss Rachel that much.
Word.
Which is fine because I don't really either. Sorry, Miss Rachel.
So we got him on that just to like try, you know what I mean? And it was helpful for us because she does all of the like the signing and the like phonetics. She like does a lot of like focus on that.
And wasn't she like a speech therapist for kids?
Or
has a background in that?
Her like child also wasn't talking for a long time. And so she did a lot of research into that.
Okay.
In hindsight, you know, it was like I said, we started him on it when he was like 17 or 18 months and he didn't start talking until he was 22 months old. So like, I don't think it helped. But once my daughter was born, you know, you said like when you have two, like no one gets a break. My husband started putting on Steam Trains Galore. Which is just steam trains.
Oh, just like a YouTube video?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We used to watch like garbage truck YouTube videos. That's a big hit too. Try that one.
We like just started monster trucks.
Okay, yes, we love that one too.
So like the steam trains are nice. It's very low stimulation, right?
Yeah.
And he'll watch that sometimes for like 20, 30 minutes so that like my husband could take a shower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and we'll sometimes do that too to like clean up the kitchen and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We used it a little bit this morning so we could like get ready to leave the house.
Yeah.
I think that like it's a tool and using it in moderation, like it is what it is. And we sometimes, when it's time to turn it off, he gets mad, you know, like that we get a bit of a reaction out of him sometimes, but like be firm in it. And I like your like no small devices.
Yeah.
We will watch things on an iPad, but like, you know what I mean? It's away from him. Like he's not sitting here like this.
Yeah.
So, it's a tool. You have to do what's best for you and your family.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's smart. We always say that it's a tool. And I think also just like the quality of what you're showing your kids is important. Yeah. I know there's some shows that are like specifically highly stimulating. If you're concerned about that, honestly, you could probably just Google it. There's a lot of people that have talked about this and written about the effects of that type of programming. So just make sure that what you're watching is going to be something that's kind of like low stimulating and not create any sort of like addictive habits in little ones. Yeah.
Oh, and first versus second, like, so it's also like I'll use it with my son so I can like nurse my daughter. Yeah. Right. So I think with her, like I'll probably be less concerned, but I won't intentionally show her anything until she's at least 18 months. Like there's no point. So yeah,
for sure. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had for today.
Thank you guys so much for watching and please hit like and subscribe.
And check out our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Here's some birth stories.